I wake to a scream that feels like it left my throat, yet the room is still. The air tastes like metal, and the clock on my dresser shows 3:03, then freezes. A figure stands at the foot of my bed, backlit by the hall. My mouth will not open. My limbs refuse me. The figure steps closer and fog blooms across the window like breath. Rowan said, "Bridge, Tuesday midnight." The whisper is inside the walls, and also inside my head. I want to deny the words, but my heart sinks to the syllables. The lamp flickers and shadows stretch too long across the floor. Tara said, "Who are you, and what did I forget?" No answer, only the smell of river water where no river belongs. The figure raises a hand and points toward the mirror. The glass carries a print that is not mine, and it is damp. I feel a pressure release and breath surges back. The figure unthreads into the dark, and the frozen clock starts again. I sit up and the sheet clings like a damp skin. The handprint on the mirror shines as if pressed a breath ago. I test my voice, and it returns in a rasp. Tara said, "If this is a dream, let me wake twice." The clock ticks normally, but the sound lands offbeat like a skipped step on stairs. My phone vibrates without lighting, as if it knows I am watching. I smell river water again and follow it to the window. Outside, the street is empty except for rain that falls straight, no wind at all. I touch the glass and feel a pulse in the pane. Tara said, "Rowan, why that bridge and why me?" Only the drainpipe answers, carrying a whisper I cannot catch. The handprint cools, but it does not fade. I call Ethan because he believes in evidence more than faith. He answers on the second ring with a yawn he tries to hide. Ethan said, "If you are safe, breathe and tell me what is real." I describe the frozen minute and the name that feels borrowed. He types while I talk, keys like rain on tin. Ethan said, "Stress dreams map onto memory and make liars of clocks." I want to hang up, yet the call tethers me to the floor. I ask him to check the bridge and the date Rowan spoke. Ethan said, "I will look, and you will drink water and wait for dawn." The house creaks like it is rolling over in sleep. When I end the call, my voicemail icon blinks to life. I never left myself a message. The speaker hisses, and my own voice spills out, torn and urgent. Tara said, "Run before the river takes the road." The recording warps, then repeats the last word like a stutter. I checked the timestamp, and it reads 1 minute before I woke. My throat tightens as if the voice crawled back through time. Tara said, "If this is a warning, I will not look away again." The house feels closer now, the walls leaning in to listen. I save the message and feel the floor hum under my feet. I step into the hall and it stretches a breath longer than it should. Floorboards sigh in a rhythm that matches my name. The ceiling light flickers and pauses as though deciding. Tara said, "Show me where you want me to look." The smell of river water threads with dust, pulling me toward the mirror again. On the glass, the handprint has smeared into a pointing streak. The streak aims past the door toward the attic pull cord. Tara said, "Not tonight, but soon." The cord sways without wind, a pendulum marking a debt. I back away and the hall shrinks to normal size. Morning finds me restless, the sky a pale wash that hides the storm of the night. I brew coffee, but taste only copper. Tara said, "Dreams should fade, not write themselves on glass." The handprint lingers in my thoughts as if it etched the mirror inside me. I think of promises unkept, of a call I once ignored. That silence weighs heavier than any scream. I keep replaying Rowan's whisper, the name carved into the dark. The date clings like a deadline, a test I do not recall signing. My chest feels like a drum echoing too loudly, and I wonder if dread can bruise flesh. I imagine Ethan's rational voice, and part of me craves that anchor. Yet another part knows anchors rust and drag you down. I stand in the kitchen, sun too weak to thaw the chill, and whisper, "Not again." The walls absorb it like an oath. I meet Ethan at a diner, the kind where grease perfumes the air more than coffee. He is early, tapping a pen against a napkin covered in notes. Ethan said, "Tell me everything again, no edits." His eyes avoid mine, scanning equations like proof will appear between salt shakers. I recount the handprint, the whisper, the clock's betrayal. He jots words, but chews his lip like a skeptic doubting himself. Tara said, "If it is only stress, why does it speak a name I never chose?" He exhales and shakes his head, muttering about subconscious tricks. Yet the pen trembles, betraying nerves. I want to reach for his hand, but distance feels safer. The clatter of plates sounds like chains dragging, and I cannot swallow. Ethan insists he will check the bridge and prove coincidence. I nod, though dread clings to my ribs. Dr. Miles' office smells of paper and lemon polish. His clock ticks steady, yet every third beat skips like a hidden metronome. He adjusts glasses and watches me over folded hands. Dr. Miles said, "Tell me about Rowan again." I struggle, because Rowan is voice and shadow, not memory. I describe frozen time, drowned air, and the handprint that refuses to dry. He notes carefully, pen scratching like an insect's crawl. Tara said when he whispers, "The words feel old, rehearsed before I existed." His gaze sharpens as though I touched something raw. The office feels too narrow, walls pressing closer. The ticking matches the whisper's rhythm, and I grip the chair until knuckles blanch. He suggests breathing exercises, but my chest already counts breaths too shallow. I want to run, but the door feels too far. When I leave, Maeve is waiting across the street. Rain slicks her coat, yet she does not flinch at the chill. Her eyes lock on me as if measuring what I hide. Maeve said, "Warnings are debts, Tara." I stiffen, heart stumbling, because she should not know my name. She smiles without warmth, and I cannot decide if she is ally or echo. Tara said, "Why do you know Rowan?" She tilts her head, offering no reply, only a gaze that says she holds pages I have not read. Cars pass, yet the world feels paused around her. My skin prickles as if her stare scribbles across it. I take a step back, and she lets me, not following, not leaving. Her presence clings like fog that seeps through locked windows. Back home, I dig through a shoebox of clippings I swore I'd burned years ago. Headlines bleed with tragedy. Bridge collapse, names of the lost dates carved into ink. One clipping shows Rowan, younger but unmistakable, standing near twisted rails. My breath stutters as recognition strikes like a blade. Tara said, "He was there before the warning." The ink smears under my fingers, as if the paper still weeps. The date matches the one whispered in my room, a prophecy printed before it spoke. I press the clipping flat, palms shaking. Tara said, "If the dead can warn, then they can also accuse." The silence in the house deepens, as if waiting for me to confess what I have not yet remembered. By evening, the house feels like a lung holding breath. I wipe the mirror clean and the handprint appears again from nothing. Tara said, "If you need me to see, then show me plainly." The lights answer with a slow dim that leaves edges knife sharp. I set a glass on the dresser and watch ripples form without touch. Clock keeps time, but my pulse scuffs the beat. Rowan said, "Bridge, Tuesday, midnight," and the name lands heavier now. I check the window and catch him in the glass, lips moving with no sound. My throat tightens, as if the words are behind me instead. Tara said, "Speak where I can hear." The hall lengthens, boards sighing, and I smell river silt and cold iron. I back toward the bed and the room seems to follow. Somewhere above, a faint step crosses the ceiling like a slow question. Ethan arrives with a toolbox and a face set to skeptical calm. He tests outlets, taps walls, and frowns when the voltage dips with my breath. Ethan said, "Bad wiring makes ghosts where none exist." I watch his hands shake when the lamp brightens on its own. Tara said, "Then explain the voice that knows our date." He circles the mirror with a flashlight, and the beam fractures on a wet print that was not there. Ethan said, "Condensation, patterns can mimic intent." The glass fogs in the shape of a second hand, and he stops speaking. We both listen as a whisper threads through the vent. It repeats my name in a rhythm that copies the clock. Ethan writes notes with forced care, each letter too neat to be honest. Maeve calls from a blocked number and asks to meet by the river path. I go because the silence at home feels sharper than knives. The water moves slow, thick as oil under sodium lamps. Maeve said warnings are debts, and yours is overdue. I ask who owes whom, and her eyes soften like memory hurts. She walks without splashing, as if the rain avoids her. Tara said, "What did Rowan pay, and what am I buying now?" She studies me and gestures toward the dark span of the bridge. Maeve said, "Listen for the name that is not yours." The breeze carries a hush that folds into my bones. For a second, I hear my own voice answer from the water. I step back, and the path seems narrower than before. Back home, the bathroom mirror hums like a struck wire. Steam from the tap gathers, though the water runs cold. In the fog, letters etch themselves with patient strokes. Rowan said, "Not you." I reach to wipe it, and my fingers freeze halfway. Tara said, "Then who is meant to hear?" The letters blur and reform into a date I already fear. A tear slips before I feel it coming, and the droplet worms a new path through the message. The hum climbs into my teeth until they ache. I shut off the tap, and the sound keeps going. My reflection lags, blinking a fraction late, and my stomach drops to the tile. When I lift my eyes, I see footprints on the ceiling, wet and ash gray. They lead from the bedroom doorway toward the attic hatch. Each step dries at the edges but stays dark in the center, as if pressed from the other side. Tara said, "If you want me to climb, say it." The cord sways without air, a pale pendulum over my head. Ethan texts an update I cannot read, because the letters swim like minnows. I fetch a chair and place it beneath the hatch, then freeze with one knee raised. The house quiets as though waiting for an answer I do not have. Rowan said, "Bridge, Tuesday, midnight," and the cord knocks once against the ceiling like a gavel. The attic exhales dust as I tug the cord and climb into a low, dark belly. My phone light finds rafters, old suitcases, and a small cedar box etched with my initials. The wood is warm as if held recently. Tara said, "If you wanted me here, I am here." A hush rides the beams, and the whisper nests behind my ear. Inside the box, velvet cradles a brass key tied to twine and a folded note without ink. I tilt it to the light and faint words surface like bruises. Rowan said, "This opens what should never have been sealed." The key teeth bite my palm, and a trickle of cold runs down my wrist. A floorboard clicks below, patient and deliberate. I pocket the key and the attic seems to lean closer, curious. The hatch swings with a breath I do not own. Ethan arrives as I descend, face tight with concern wrapped in logic. He asks about the box, and I show the key without the tremor I feel. Ethan said, "Let me set up a monitor just to document this." He unpacks devices, wires snaking like patient vines across my floor. I watch him angle a camera toward the mirror, and my stomach knots. Tara said, "Promise this stays between us." He nods too quickly and keeps working, eyes avoiding mine. The red light blooms as the lens wakes, and the room seems to shrink. The whisper threads through the vent, repeating the old date. Ethan said, "Evidence first, answers second." I feel photographed rather than seen, and trust thins like old glass. While Ethan checks signals, Maeve texts a single line that tastes like iron. Maeve said, "Warnings are debts, and yours compounds at midnight." I meet her on the porch where rain strings like wires. She studies me as if reading the spaces between breaths. Tara said, "You said I replaced someone." Maeve's gaze flicks to the house, then back to my pocket. Maeve said, The key binds warnings to doors and doors to names. The words land heavy and the porch wood hums under our feet. She steps closer and lowers her voice until it barely moves air. Maeve said, "He points because he cannot touch the lock again." I think of the mirror print, the attic hatch, the basement wall that never felt right. The key warms as if agreeing. I bring the key to Dr. Miles the next afternoon, because daylight feels braver. His office tick is steady and it still scrapes my nerves raw. Adio. He listens, posture composed, but his pen pauses when I describe the note that bled words from light. Dr. Miles said, "Confront the night you buried." My jaw tightens as a memory tilts into frame. A missed call, a bridge, a promise I let drown in static. Tara said, "If I open the wrong door, does the debt double?" He folds his hands, and for a beat the room shrinks to just breath and clock. Dr. Miles said, "The fear of remembering is the lock itself." The key in my palm grows colder until my fingers ache. I nod, though the nod feels like a verdict. At home the house greets me with a sound I cannot mistake. A child's cry threads through the vent, thin as a cut. It moves from ceiling to floor, then settles behind the basement door. Tara said, "If this is where the lock lives, I am coming." Ethan texts a location pin for the bridge, but I pocket the phone. The basement smells of iron, damp concrete, and old paint. The light switch stutters and stays dim, as if ashamed. I follow the cry to a section of wall smoother than the rest. The key warms, then cools, then warms again like a beacon. Rowan said, "Open what was sealed for the wrong name." I press my ear to the concrete, and it answers with slow breathing that is not mine. I press the brass key to the smoothest part of the basement wall, and feel a pulse answer. Mortar shivers like skin rejecting a stitch. Tara said, "If you were sealed for me, open clean." The key slots into a hairline seam I never saw until now. Cold floods my wrist as a hidden latch clicks. Concrete loosens with a sigh and a panel swings inward. The air behind it smells of river iron and long sleep. In the alcove sits a rusted cot and a shattered locket. Rowan said, "You were never the target." My breath doubles, and I can hear the older beat beneath it. The date is carved into the back wall in careful strokes. Tara said, "Then who stood in my place when the warning first came?" The bulb flickers and the floor trembles like a held cry. Something in the dark leans close enough to taste. I lift the locket and a photo curls inside, water-warped yet stubborn. The face is Rowan, younger, framed by twisted rails and caution tape. My stomach turns as memory lifts a corner of itself. Tara said, "You were there before I ever dreamed you." The whisper gathers like wind finding a throat. Rowan said, "Only the substitute hears me." The word bites harder than truth. I imagine a night of ringing phones and a promise I let drown. The alcove hums and the cot creaks without weight. Tara said, "Who traded places with me, and why did I accept?" The key warms again, pulsing in time with the carved date. Dust lifts as if waking settles in the shape of letters. They spell a single word that fits like a splinter. Ethan bursts down the stairs with wet shoes and a face drained of math. He holds printouts that shake more than he does. Ethan said, "Records tie Maeve to that bridge to 3 other warnings to you." The papers list donations, condolence funds, and travel dates. My throat tightens because patterns draw their own blades. Tara said she knew the door and the debt before I did. Ethan stares at the alcove like a mouth with teeth. He swallows and points at the carved date. Ethan said, "Every warning lands on a substitute, then repeats until paid." A low rumble hunts the ceiling from room to room. The bulb sways and smears our shadows into one unsteady shape. I realize we are standing inside a conclusion someone engineered. Dr. Miles arrives because Ethan called in panic he will deny later. He steps into the basement with careful shoes and careful eyes. He takes in the cot, The date, the locket, and the shape of our fear. Dr. Miles said, "There is a pattern in my files that matches this." He speaks of warned survivors whose lives end as accidents. Insurance wins through their names like ivy. Tara said, "You knew this machine and still called it stress." His gaze wavers and lands on the key in my palm. "Not all," Dr. Miles said. "Exposure weakens it, but it feeds on silence most." The hum gathers into a single tone that breaks into our teeth. The pops and glass shards blink on the floor like ice. Darkness folds, and then the dust on the floor writes by itself. Each stroke drags like a finger from the other side. The word resolves in harsh lines that glitter with grit. It says tonight, and the air lurches like an elevator. Rowan said, "You were never meant to stand where you stand." I understand that someone close traded names and left me the echo. Tara said, "If I carry it now, I choose what it costs." The vent exhales river breath, and the walls answer with a hollow knock. Ethan whispers that the bridge has a service panel no map lists. Dr. Miles nods like a verdict. He cannot stop. The date on the wall shines wet as if freshly carved. The key beats once in my hand and waits for a door. Storm sirens howl as I drive toward the bridge, wipers dragging streaks across the windshield. The night is split by lightning that shows the guardrail bending toward the river. Ethan follows in his own car, headlights jittering in the rear mirror. My phone buzzes with Maeve's name, but no sound when I answer. Rowan said, "This is where the dead is tallied." I park at the edge where asphalt crumbles into wet gravel. The storm shoves at me like a hand that wants me gone. Tara said, "If the lock is here, I will open it." The brass key burns against my palm as though urging me forward. Thunder climbs into my ribs, shaking my breath uneven. The bridge feels older than its years, and I know it remembers more than I do. Maeve steps from the storm like she belongs to it, coat whipping, hair plastered to her face. Her eyes cut through the dark with calm fire. Maeve said, "When the whisper peaks, use the key." I clutch it harder and feel its ridges dig into skin. Tara said, "Why help me if you already failed, Rowan?" She flinches just for a breath, then straightens as if pulled by duty. Ethan arrives, his boots splashing into pooled water, shouting over the wind that this is madness. The guardrail groans like it wants to break. Maeve points at the base of the rail, where a hidden panel gapes like a mouth. Rowan's shadow moves across the span, silent, pointing with the same plea. I kneel by the service panel, rust streaking down the steel. The key slips in as if it has always belonged. Inside is a box crammed with files, photographs, and staged accident reports. Ethan gasps as he reads names that should not match but do. Tara said, "This is not haunting, it is design." Maeve leans close, whispering that silence is its fuel. The river below churns as though angered by exposure. Rowan's figure stands mid-span, his eyes pleading, his lips repeating a word I cannot hear. I pull one file and see my own name dated tonight. My stomach locks as if I swallowed stone. Tara said, "If this ends me, at least it ends the lie." The storm hurls rain like nails across my back. The storm screeches and the box rattles like it wants to be shut. Ethan insists we burn everything before it consumes us. Maeve shakes her head and says, "Fire feeds it faster." Rowan raises both arms, pointing first at me then at the water, urging choice. Tara said, "I cannot run from the weight carved in concrete." I scatter the files across the road, pages plastering wet to asphalt. Words and faces smear but remain visible, refusing erasure. Dr. Miles's warnings echo in memory, that silences the lock. I shout the names into the storm one by one, daring it to take me. The whisper rises into a roar, shaking the bridge until bolts scream. Ethan covers his ears, and Maeve steadies me with her gaze. Storm stills for a breath, as if waiting on my choice. I clutch the key and press it into the steel, carving new grooves with stubborn will. Tara said, "Not silence, not shadow, not me." The whisper falters, thinning into broken syllables. Rowan's face softens, and he mouths thank you though I cannot hear. The panel sparks and the files inside blacken into ash without flame. Ethan stares at me as if I fractured his world. Maeve closes her eyes and whispers. The balance shifts. The bridge steadies, its groan fading. Yet the river below seethes with restless anger, as though waiting for the next substitute. I feel lighter, but also marked, as if a cost has already been drawn. The files dissolve into ash and scatter across the wet bridge, carried away by the storm's last breath. Rowan lingers at the span's center, his outline dimming as though chains are breaking one by one. His lips form a word I cannot hear, but I feel it vibrate in my chest. Ethan lowers his hands slowly, eyes wide with the admission that reason has failed. Maeve whispers he is unbound now, and the storm softens to drizzle. My knees weaken not from relief, but from knowing freedom never comes without cost. Tara said, if the debt is paid, what follows me home? The air is too still, as if silence is only a disguise for waiting. Rowan lifts his face to the river wind and dissolves like breath on glass. The glow that held him breaks apart into drifting motes that vanish in the drizzle. Ethan stumbles forward as though to catch what cannot be touched. Maeve tilts her head and says softly, balance shifts, not ends. My hand shakes as I close my fist around the key, still warm despite the cold night. Tara said, if his chain is gone, mine only tightens. The river surges below with restless fury, as though mourning what it cannot keep. The silence that follows is heavier than thunder. The drive home is silent, except for the wipers dragging across glass. Ethan tries to speak, but swallows the words, knowing language cannot cage what we saw. Maeve does not ride with us. She vanishes before we leave, coat lost to fog. Tara said, some warnings stay even when voices fade. The city feels hollow, streetlights blinking out one by one like closing eyes. I glance at Ethan's face, pale and shaken, yet still searching for reason to hold on to. My hands tremble on the wheel, the key heavy in my pocket, as though anchoring me to something unseen. The quiet feels like a prelude, not peace. At home, the house greets me with stillness too sharp. The mirror in the hallway no longer bears the wet handprint. For a moment, relief flutters until the silence grows thick again. Tara said, if he is gone, something else waits to be written. Ethan lingers at the doorway, muttering an apology I barely hear. He promises belief from now on, but his voice cracks with fear. Maeve's note sits on the porch, a scrap of paper damp from the rain. It reads only, all warnings cost. My chest aches with the truth I already knew. Debt never vanishes, it only changes shape. I turn off the lamp, and the house exhales as though satisfied. Darkness folds over everything like a blanket pulled too tight. My phone vibrates once on the table, an unknown number glowing. The message reads the carved date again, followed by a new place. My reflection in the screen blinks half a second slower than I do. Tara said, if the debt is not mine, it waits for me still. The silence that follows is more terrifying than any scream. It feels like a hand resting on my shoulder, patient, certain. The man who haunts my dreams is gone, but the dream itself remains awake.